Are you ready for some more name calling? That's what we see again this week, just like the week before. And another pattern that you're going to see is this interplay between Jesus and Pharisees, Jesus and disciples. And we kind of go back and forth, Pharisees, disciples. That's a pattern that's not just common to Matthew, but something that you'll also see in the Gospels as well. Take a look at Matthew chapter 16. Verse 1, the Pharisees and Sadducees came up, and testing Jesus, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. Now, this is the second time they've asked for this. We saw it again. We saw it before in chapter 12. But Jesus replies to them, when it's evening, you say it'll be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, there's going to be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. Do you not know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but can't discern the signs of the times? An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and a sign will not be given it except the sign of Jonah. And Jesus left them and went away. And then the disciples came to the other side of the sea, but they'd forgotten to bring any bread. It gets kind of funny here. Jesus says to them, watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, leaven is think of it as yeast. It's what's used to make bread rise. So the disciples began to discuss this among themselves, saying, well, he said that because we didn't bring any bread. But Jesus, aware of this, says, you men of little faith. There goes name calling again. Why do you discuss among yourselves that you have no bread? Do you not understand or remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets full you picked up? Or the 7 loaves of the 4,000, how many large baskets full you picked up? So twice he's already done miracles regarding bread. And it's interesting because we have twice the miracles. He reminds them, hey, you've seen this twice. And this is the second time that he's had to tell the Pharisees, you want a sign? There's only going to be one sign given to you. So you got this, disciples have 2 signs, Pharisees have 2 warnings about signs. Jesus says, how is it that you don't understand that I'm not speaking to you concerning bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Then the disciples understood that he did not say to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Their teaching is not a thing to be spread. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, picking up in verse 13, he was asking his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, but still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But he said to them, who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus says to him, blessed are you, Simon, and check out this name, Bar-Jonah. What's that mean? Well, it could mean son of Jonah. It could mean, depending on how this is translated and whether it's a shortened form of the word, the name for John. It could be Simon, son of John, his father's name, or Simon, son of Jonah. Hold on to that. He says, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who's in heaven. I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. And then he warned the disciples that they should tell no one that he was, here's an important name, the Christ. And from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised up on the 3rd day. But Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord. This shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me if you're not setting your mind on God's interests, but on man's interests. So back to this idea of Simon Bar-Jonah. He's called him Simon Bar-Jonah, and then he calls him a rock, and then he calls him Satan. So if he's saying Simon, son of John, it could be in contrast to Peter saying, you're the son of God, and he's saying, you're the son of John. I'm God, you're a man. You're going to have to make a decision between whose interests are chief in your life. Is it the interest of man? Is it the interest of God? Or he could be saying, Simon Bar-Jonah, son of Jonah, that is one who has seen or is going to see the sign of Jonah, that thing he'd been telling the Pharisees. This is the most important thing you're going to have to make a decision about. Here's the main sign. that I'm going to be like Jonah, buried for 3 days, and resurrect on the other side of it. So, Simon Bar-Jonah, Peter the rock, get behind me, Satan. Who is it that Peter will be? Will he set his mind on man's interests or God's? Well, how do we know how to do that? Well, the next verse, Jesus says to disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. And that's the key to setting our interest either on ourselves, our own interests, man's interest, the world's interest, or on God's. Keep reading.